Press conference of the Foreign Minister Kamikawa will now begin. Over to you, Minister.
From November 12th to 16th, I will attend the APEC ministerial meeting, IPEF ministerial level meeting, and Japan-US Economic 2+2 meeting. Therefore, I will visit San Francisco for these meetings. At the APEC ministerial meeting, on important issues of promoting free and open trade and investment, responses to global challenges, and inclusive growth, embracing women and youth, I plan to state Japan's position. Also, as Russia's aggression against Ukraine is impacting economic cooperation in Asia and the Pacific, I plan to share the awareness that the aggression should be stopped as soon as possible. At the IPEF ministerial level meeting, to realize sustainable and inclusive economic growth in Indo-Pacific region, on Pillar 1 on trade, Pillar 2 of supply chain, Pillar 3 on clean economy, and Pillar 4 fair economy, high-level discussion will be held, to which constructive contribution will be made. On Economic 2+2 meeting, diplomacy, security, and economy will be discussed in an integrated manner, and we will aim for realization of sustainable and inclusive economic growth in Indo-Pacific, maintaining and strengthening free and open regional economic order and cooperation in economic security, so that the Japan-US cooperation will be expanded and deepened in economic area. That's it from me. Thank you.
Please raise your hand if you have any questions, and if you're called upon, please move forward onto the microphone. Matsuyama-san from Asahi Shimbun. Matsuyama, Asahi Shimbun. With regard to APEC, you talked about IPEF. Toward the 4 pillars, you aim to come to an agreement. Now, what leadership Japan has demonstrated, that's the first point. And as the Japan's foreign minister, please describe the economic diplomacy.
Yes, APEC and the IPEF meeting and a series of meetings will be held, and I will be there to attend these meetings. And as for the APEC ministerial meeting, besides promoting free and open trade and investment, responses to global challenges, as well as inclusive growth, embracing women and youth, Japan's position will be stated, and together with the members of APEC, we would like to contribute to the discussion on the regional sustainable development. As for the IPEF, with regard to this, currently in San Francisco, negotiation meeting is ongoing. As for the outcome of the ministerial level meeting, I wouldn't prejudge anything at this time, so I would refrain from making comment. But anyway, as far as Japan is concerned, from the viewpoint of U.S. engagement from the strategic point of view in the economic order in the Indo-Pacific, we place emphasis on the IPEF, and it has to be made a framework where tangible benefit can be enjoyed by all the parties, and this is a position with which Japan has been dealing with this issue. We hope early concrete outcome will be delivered. Toward that goal, we would continue to make a constructive role in discussion.
Next, Katsurada-san from Kyodo News. Katsurada, Kyodo News. On the G7 foreign ministers meeting, you had a discussion with each company about the Middle East, and as minister, you will continue to cooperate with other countries and to build up on the effort based upon what has been discussed. What is the role that Japan will be playing in the Middle East?
With regard to the issue of Middle East situation, it's a complex issue where religion, ethnicity, and history are intertwined. So solution is not easy. That's my thought. However, we would overcome that, and every effort will be made, and there is a necessity to do it. And Japan has no historical baggage, so this is a role that Japan can really play. We will create together the future where people can live together, and we will support the realization toward two-state solution and to provide support to the economic independence of Palestine. These are very important in Israel and Palestine. Of course, between those, economic disparity is evident. For the economic independence of Palestine, Japan has been promoting the concept of a corridor of peace and prosperity. We have been cooperating on that and building the relationship based on friendship and trust. When I visited Israel, I met with bereft families of the victim of Hamas terror attack, and family members of the hostage shared deep grief. And I met again in Jordan the children who came to Japan together with UNRWA but couldn't go back to their homeland Gaza because of the terror attack. And at the headquarters of UNRWA in Jordan, I was able to meet with them once again. And within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they said that I would like to become a scientist when they came to see me in Japan. I remember that. I hope their future will be certain. And toward the goal, politics has to play a role, and the leadership of various different countries have to serve their responsibility. Of course, cutting the chain of hatred and grief, and support the future of a two-state solution where people can live together. And because Japan has both a good relationship with Israel and Palestine, the role that Japan should play is this. I visited the local area, and I felt that the trust put on Japan is so great. Japanese embassy locally had built up friendship and contribution, and based on the various sources of information from our network, we hope to have good Japanese diplomacy comprehensively short-term, improve the humanitarian situation, settle down the situation from mid to long-term. Two-state solution will be realized, and aim at realizing regional peace and stability, to which every diplomatic effort will be made.
NHK 五十嵐さん。五十嵐 NHK Israel and Palestinian situation. White House on the 9th on the Gaza northern part where the Israel is continuing in the ground offensive, and they have suggested about the daily 4 hours on pause, and also what is the role that Japan will be playing in order to overcome the situation.
I know about that press report you mentioned, and also local time November 5th and onwards, Israeli troops had established a corridor for evacuation from northern part of Gaza. And while locally the pause of fighting is taking place, large number of residents are transferred to the southern part of the area. At the G7 foreign ministers meeting held just the other day, we views concurred on the humanitarian pause and the support for humanitarian corridor. As for the measures announced, we are making a perusal into it. At any rate, these measures should be linked to the provision of urgently needed support, movement of civilians, and the release of hostages. Of course, we cannot prejudge the situation, but Japan will have close communication with international organizations and the G7 members, and try to aim for the improvement of the humanitarian situation, settling down the situation as soon as possible. And toward that goal, we will patiently have diplomatic efforts continued.
Kudo-san from Yomiuri Shimbun. Kudo, Yomiuri Shimbun, thank you. Regarding G7, on the press conference on 8th, you emphasized that Japan's G7 presidency you emphasize that it is not 2 months left. However, there are 2 more months. And also, as a G7 countries, you said that you would like to explain and gain understanding of the Global South countries, taking the opportunity of APEC ministerial meeting, which specific countries you would like to talk, as well as which specific points you would like to talk, and within the G7 presidency for 2 months, what you would like to focus on.
First of all, at the margin of APEC ministerial meeting, of course, this opportunity per se is very important, and we are going to have a bilaterals as much as possible. We hope to have bilateral meetings as many as possible so as to deepen our relationship. So actually, to whom I will be meeting with bilaterally is being coordinated as I speak. But at any rate, various opportunities will be seized. And with regard to the maintaining and strengthening free and open international order based on the rule of law, we would like to get wide support and engagement of the international community, inclusive of the countries from so-called Global South. As for the remaining time, 2 months for the Japanese presidency, what will be the emphasis as a presidency? That was your question. So over the 1-year period, Japan served as a presidency of G7 with, it was a very heavy responsible position and the role. And this week, G7 foreign ministers meeting was held, and urgent issue of Middle Eastern situation was, of course, discussed, and also discussion took place on the Indo-Pacific region, which is the most important strategic area. And also, so far, in various different ways, discussion have been accumulated on Ukraine, and this was also taken up at our meeting. So based on these outcome, inclusive of a Middle Eastern situation with regard to urgent issues that the international community is faced with. Up until the last moment of a presidency, we will serve a role of a presidency of a G7. And next year, presidency country will be Italy. And together with the foreign minister of Italy, we've been talking about it. And within the agenda item of G7, we are communicating with the next presidency country, and we would pass on the baton to Italy next year. Unity of G7 will be kept up and upheld so that the baton will be passed smoothly to our next presidency country. So remaining time is 2 months, but we will do our best.
では、パンオリエントニュース。
Pan Orient News, Azahari-san.
Pan Orient News. Increasing Israeli and Arab reports suggest that no evidence is showing that Hamas beheaded Israeli children. They also say that most of the Israeli civilian victims were killed by the Israeli military itself when it was shelling the houses in panic. So some Palestinian officials are calling for an international investigation in Israel's claims on who killed the Israeli civilians. Would Japan support an investigation into Israeli claims? Thank you.
About the survey that you had said, we don't know about the details of such a survey with regard to whether we will take part in it or not. I would refrain from making comment because that would be prejudging the outlook. But at any rate, all the activities should be in accordance with international law, inclusive of international humanitarian law. So we are saying the importance of protecting the civilians to Israel in accordance with international law, inclusive of international humanitarian law. We are seeking every party to act in accordance with it.
アナドル通信のミルジャンさんどうぞ。
Furjan-san from Anadolu Agency from Turkey.
ミルジャンです。
Meljan from Anadolu Agency. More than 17,000 civilians were killed in this war, and 70% of which are the innocent women and children. G7 foreign ministers condemned Hamas. However, they used more softer language to Israelis' attack to Gaza. Unlike G7, Japanese government is required to state its positions clearly. That seems to be the demand coming from the Japanese nationals. Apart from G7 partners, Israelis killing of the innocent civilians, and does Japan would like to call for a ceasefire, try to condemn Israel in Gaza, attack by Israeli in Gaza? Do you agree and go side with G7 not to condemn?
Well, the international situation is being uncertain, and G7 partners with whom we share the fundamental value, it's very important in cooperation. So far, G7 has been taking up various issues as well as the most current issues at the same time. Every topic has been taken up among the foreign ministers of G7, and G7 is a very important venue to do that. Well, Japan unequivocally condemned the Hamas terror attack, and also we are seeking for the early release of the hostages, security for the civilian. All the parties should act in accordance with international law and asking for the settling down of the situation early, and this position has been evident and consistent from the onset. Vis-à-vis Israel, we are stressing the importance of protecting the civilians and inclusive of international humanitarian law. The action should be in accordance with the international law. And when I visited Israel the other day, I said to Foreign Minister of Israel, Cohen, the same thing directly. So improvement of the humanitarian situation, settling down of the situation early, aiming for that patiently and proactively, diplomatic efforts will continue, and inclusive of the concept of a corridor of peace and prosperity through the efforts which is unique to Japan. We will make efforts to build a trust relationship amongst the parties.
根本さん、日経新聞、根本日経ニュースペーパー。Gaza's humanitarian aid, a 4-hour daily pause. And based on the G7 meeting, you shared with us of the observations to evacuate civilians as well as to provide the goods. Do you intend to expand the region's scope as well as the time frame? Do you think this will be the first step to lead to the perpetual ceasefire?
First of all, there are various informations circulating, and we know of such information from a local time, November 5th and onwards. The situation, Israeli troops had established a corridor for the evacuation from the northern part of Gaza, while locally this pause continues for the fighting. Many residents are moving to the southern part. So at the G7 Foreign Minister meeting held the other day, views concurred on the humanitarian pause and the support for the humanitarian corridor, the objective of which is that currently humanitarian situation is very severe, and as soon as possible, the hostages should be released. And inclusive of all these, as one of the measures, these kind of measures have been taken this time. So urgently needed support, movement of people, and the release of the hostages. These posts need to be linked to that. Of course, we cannot prejudge the situation, but we hope all these will be realized. And toward that goal, G7 and other international organizations and such cooperation will continue and make sure that improvement will take place. And within the big picture, we hope that peace can be realized, and toward which efforts will continue.
最後に IWJ さんどうぞ。
お疲れ様です。
IWJ, this will be the final questions. Yamamoto from IWJ. There may be overlapping with some other questions, but this is regarding G7. In the G7 foreign ministers meeting, humanitarian pause suggested by the U.S. Was come to an agreement. However, this is just a pause, not calling for the ceasefire. On the 27th of October, there was a resolution that was adopted. It did not condemn Hamas. However, it was closer to the ceasefire. U.S. Have a much favoritism to Israel. That is being known. The G7 led by U.S. seems to be isolated in the world. Now, Japan continue to join with the U.S. without any criticism. Do you think that is good for Japan's national interest?
Well, this year, Japan has been serving the presidency of G7 based on the rule of law. Open and free international order has been upheld, and together with our partners, priority has been put to have them engaged. And we've been leading the discussion and has been delivering the results and outcome. And of course, there is a regional frameworks out there, and with like-minded countries, with regard to important issues individually, communication has been upheld. So continuously, these diplomatic efforts will continue within the international community. Proactive role will be served by Japan. That is our thought.
ありがとうございました。
This is the end of today's press conference. Thank you.